Dr. Shanti Rubenstone has had an amazing career in the medical profession. She owned and ran the biggest internal medicine practice, a private practice in the United States. And apart from that, I loved hearing a story. I'm going to embarrass you now because you told a story, and tell me if you're going to share this tonight. But all the way through her medical practice, and for the first, if you know anything about medicine, for the first probably dozen or so years, you're probably working 12 to 14 hour days, 7 days a week for months on end. And Dr. Shanti was known for her energy and joyfulness, and a part of that was her mindfulness practice. And to spent and expanded many, many years of this, and then has made it her life's passion to share this with the world. And she's a wonderful speaker. She gets called across all around the world, from India to Europe. We've managed to scoop her and bring her over to Australia with a beautiful entourage. And we're very fortunate as Lions members to share this and give back to the Lions community, who served the community for many, many years. And we sort of had a bit of a demonstration before of that service to the community. And so it's a bit of a reciprocation here. It's like we're giving back. Shanti's got some wonderful tips to keep us all energized and alive and how things are. And tell me if, I'm sure that's what you're doing. But either way, we're very blessed to have Shanti here to share with us all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now, the important question is, can you hear me? Everybody? Okay, great. I don't have to hold the microphone. When I'm in the US and I feel a little more comfortable because it's the US and I know exactly what I need to do, I don't allow anybody to introduce me because the introductions always feel like, oh, dear Lord. So I had the third largest practice in the United States. I'm just going to correct a little bit about what Simon said. And I worked 18 to 20 hours a day. So yeah, medicine was beautiful and compelling, and still is very much a miracle in my life. Really an opportunity to serve almost endlessly to this day, and yet to be given a lot of techniques and awarenesses and support to be able to do that. And it's part of what we'll talk about tonight, without being fatigued or without being drawn down in any other way. Very important part of what it means to serve. And I want to get into it. I spent a fair amount of time today just looking into the Lions of Australia so I could know who I was talking to and what you do. And I want to reflect a little bit on that. But if you don't mind, before I speak, I'd like to invite a few of my friends up, people who have traveled with me from India and the US, and they're going to sing one song for us. And I will say, as we listen, the words are delightful, but more than the words, I'd like us all to just try and feel the energy of the music, because energy is a huge piece of what we'll be speaking about tonight. So why don't you come up?
There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine, dance through a meadow, or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom but don't see the dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. There's joy all around us, why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
I live in a lovely community in California. So it's beautiful to live in a whole community of friends. I mean, of course, we have our separate homes, but we just live and work and serve together. And it's you can feel we do a lot with music. And music just speaks to something beyond mind, which is a big part of why it could be so meaningful to start with a piece of music like that without us needing to think or being able to think. We're just uplifted. Of course, the music has to appeal to you, and it's got to be uplifting because there are many beautiful pieces of music that may not have the same energy to them. But it's very important when we're working and serving, as I know all of you do. I don't know who works in what capacity, but I know that as Lions, there's a huge amount of service. That's what you're doing. I started to tell you before that I spent today looking online to see what I could learn about what you're doing. It was deeply touching to me, really touching, very impressive. And I watched every video that's been put up. This is Lions of Australia. I was asking a few people, what does this mean when the Lions do this? And they said, we don't do that. And I said, yes, you do that. No, we don't do that. I said, go online and watch your videos. Everybody does this. And then Catherine says it must be we serve with heart or from the heart, because in every one of those videos, at the end of the video, they actually bring the energy back to the heart. But the stories are so beautiful. And I imagine, but, just to recap briefly, one of them was about a young man whose mother is deaf. Perhaps you already know this story as I'm telling you. And he decided that he wanted to find a way to serve the deaf community. So he started training dogs to work with the deaf. And then he found the Lions. And then he started serving with the help of the Lions, the work that they have done, being able to get dogs to help people who are deaf. It's really changed. He said 1,000 people's life already just in terms of what he's been able to do. Anyway, the stories were endless and just so uplifting. But still the question comes, another story was about a man who's married, and he has his son who looked to be about 12. He works full-time in the tech world somewhere, but he wanted to he wanted to serve. He was moved by what the Lions do. And he said in there, he said, I'm married. I put a lot of time and energy into my relationship. I have a son. I work full time, and I want to serve this much the way the Lions do. And he was talking about the only way he could do that was to bring his family in so that he was able to spend time with his family. And at one point in this video, have you all seen the video? Am I just, okay, good. I don't want to just be repeating what you all know. Well, this is on your website, and it's beautiful. But he said he's there and he's watching his son do a lot of these projects, and he's nearly in tears. He's so moved. He said, here's my young son who's learning these values, who's learning what it means to give, which is such a beautiful way for all of us, however we do it. I never joined the Lions in the USA, but the truth is my days go still to this day from 4:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night, most days, sometimes later. Where do we get the energy to do that? Many people ask me, when are you going to retire? And I think, what would I do? Really, what would I do? Why would I ever retire? If I wasn't serving, where would the meaning be in my life? Which is really a lot about what all of you are doing. But I'll share an experience with you. This was before I went to medical school. I was a nurse for 14 years. My husband was already a physician. So I was studying, taking some, I don't know what the language is here, but we call them undergraduate classes. So a few college classes to be able to go to medical school. And my husband was working a very busy emergency room. And I felt like what I'll do is I'll go with him on the weekends. That way we could at least see each other a little bit. I'll work as a nurse, he'll work as a doctor. And we did. We worked together in a little hospital along the coast in San Diego, where we were living at the time. And one day, and he was very busy. He was the doctor. I wasn't. I was the nurse. I was supporting him. San Diego is a big destination point for vacations and people on the beach and families playing and visiting. Very busy emergency room on the weekends. And one day this woman came in, and my husband Barry was taking care of her, and I was there with him. And it turns out, without telling you the whole story, that she had a very unusual infection. That's all I'll say for now, not go into the details. I could see as he was telling her this, and he was rushed. He was in a hurry because he had this whole ER full of patients. She was very upset by the fact that she had this infection. For a lot of reasons, it was an unusual infection, and she was embarrassed by it, and it had to be treated. And he just sort of went through it, and then she left. And about an hour later, I just had this feeling about her. I felt like she was in trouble. That's what came to me. So I'm still in the emergency room. I'm still working. And I was drawn to go out into the parking lot, just in an odd way. You know how you get an intuition at times, just something comes. I went out into the parking lot, and an hour later, she's sitting in her car crying. So I spent time with her, literally sat down with her, spoke with her, talked to her, and really helped her through that moment. And my shift ended in 8 hours, but Barry had to work 12. So for the next 4 hours, I went into the doctor's room. I wasn't a doctor, but I went in there and studied. And when his shift was over, I said to him, this is the oddest thing, Barry, but I need you to examine me. He said, why? I said, I think I have that infection. I mean, it was the most impossible, unlikely. I mean, this was a lot of years ago now. I didn't begin to know anything then about all of the things that I know about now. All of what I've learned about energy and what the whole concept of energy means, what I know now about mindfulness, about meditation, about caring for oneself. He came in, he examined me. Sure enough, I had that infection. It was impossible. That infection came to me because I was so open to her energy. There's just no other way to describe it, but I had the infection and I needed to be treated. And at one point, I said to myself, if you're not thoughtful, if you don't become mindful about this, this could be a cancer. That's what I said to myself. I was at the time 30 years old. I started medical school very late because I was doing nursing and other things. But that awareness came to me about how thoughtful we need to be if we're working with other people, hearts wide open. This, serving from the heart, really. And I said to myself, I don't want to ever have to close my heart to anyone, but I also don't want to embark on this career and get everybody's diseases. And it dawned on me that that could happen. Now, again, I can speak to you about it now. It's not the point of the talk tonight. I've actually been able to make sense of it, and I have a lot of help in the world because so have the quantum physicists. Now, years later, the people who are doing quantum physics tell us everything is energy, everything. And this is not me speaking, these are the greatest minds in the universe, of which mine is not one of them. But they are telling us everything's energy. This is important. Everything is made up of exactly the same substrate. It just looks different at different times based on the frequency of the vibration of those molecules. So it's just like you wouldn't question me if I said to you, there's water, there's ice, there's steam, and guess what? It's all made up of the same three molecules, right? Everybody knows that. H2, 2 molecules of hydrogen, O, oxygen. It's simple. But if you had somebody who had never seen ice and you brought them up to some glacier and you said that's water, they might have no idea what you're talking about. So we know these things. There are many other simple examples, but we can get that into our rational mind. It gets much more difficult when it blows our mind, literally. Is that an Australian expression as well? Blowing somebody's mind. That means it's beyond mind. You can't get it. You can't grasp it. So if I said to you, there's absolutely no difference between you and the chair you're sitting on. And in fact, if we separated all of the molecules, if we could somehow do that of pure energy, you couldn't sit on that chair. You would go right through it, or it would go through you because you're all made up of the same thing. Again, very hard to grasp for many of us, unless there's any physicists or scientists in the room. Then you know these things, but when you don't. Now, why does this matter when we're talking about serving? Why does it matter that energy is all the same, but that we always have within us the ability to transform all of that energy from one state to another? And it matters because we're serving and we're out there serving people. I read about this. I don't know what any of you do, but I read about the lions showing up in one situation after another, when people are in great distress. It might be children who have special needs and you surround yourselves with them. It might be some emergency somewhere and you go out to help in an emergency. You show up when people are hungry and they need food, or babies need incubators. This is serious and intense work. So how are we going to take care of ourselves so that energy, so that we can stay strong, stay healthy, stay literally energetic, filled with energy, filled with enthusiasm? If we're working long hours, or when the situations sometimes are nearly unbearable to watch because they're so painful. It can be so painful watching children struggle or newborn babies not have what they need, or just on and on. All of what your work is and my work is. If we don't find a way to stay strong, to stay inwardly strong, to stay centered, to stay collected, then we can really get into trouble. And it's not just what the Lions do. To be honest, this is true throughout our lives. This is true when we want to make sure that our relationships are good with our partners or with our children or with friends. It applies all the time, everywhere. How can I be the best that I can be? And the secret is, as Simon started saying, that there are ways to take care of ourselves. Mostly, we're not taught those ways. Mostly, we're not raised like that. There was nobody telling me when I was little how important maintaining a joyful attitude was. There was nobody telling me when I was little, what is enthusiasm? What is energy? How do you draw it up? My mother said to me, my mother was a good lady, but she was limited by her own sense of reality, like we all are. So when I said to her, Mom, I really want to be a doctor, when I was about 16, she said to me, honey, you can't be a doctor. You can't. No, why don't you just be a nurse? You'll be able to be a nurse. So you know what I did? I became a nurse because that's what happens, because that's the energy now, it turned out to be a great thing. I subsequently stood up and gave talks about why every doctor should have to go to nursing school first. And I believe it because I don't know about Australia. I really don't. But in the US, in nursing school, they teach you about the heart. They teach you about compassion. They teach you about listening. They teach you about all those things. They can also spend 3 weeks teaching you how to make a bed, and you better get it right. But they talk about those things. We didn't get a lot of that. I went to Stanford Medical School. Have any of you ever heard of it? Stanford, yeah. It's one of the best medical schools in the world, right? I mean, it just is. It's up there like that. And I was sent there for a reason, I'm sure. I was not one of those very, very bright students. It's just not who I was. I wasn't interested in that way. I was more interested in my heart. I was more interested in the heart and soul and compassion and caring as a means of healing others and myself. That's what I felt. And that's why we can joke about it, because I did ask a lot of people in the room out of curiosity. I wasn't trying to stump the stars here. I was saying, why do the Lions do this? And everybody said to me, we don't do that. But I saw it, so I know you do. But it really struck me because it's such a gesture. It's just such a gesture about what it means to come back and get centered in our hearts, not in an emotional way, not like that, because we all know when we're real emotional, we're basically ineffective. No, in a solid, centered, more a place of compassion and devotion and caring heals more than all of the science. I mean, I'm not down on medicine. I love what all of the brilliant doctors and scientists and IT people and everybody is doing around the world. We need it, but we need to do it with heart. And to do that, we need to be able to get calm enough within ourselves to be able to find that space and relate no matter what we're doing, whether we're a firefighter, whether we're a teacher, whether we're holding a mother's hand as she goes to look at her baby in an incubator that we just donated for the first time. Really doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're raising your children, trying to strengthen your relationship with your partner, caring for a mother who's sick and about to leave her body. Doesn't matter what we're doing. Whatever we do, when we can get, this is a new age term, mindfulness. But I was being shown it and I was practicing it long before that phrase existed, because that's just a catchy phrase. So then everybody signs up online to do mindfulness training. Very good thing. But what is mindfulness really? Why does it matter? It matters because it gives all of us, you can get an app on your phone. In fact, you could get 40 different apps on your phone that are about mindfulness because it's so big now, or meditation in some ways. And they're teaching you how to calm yourself down. Somebody over here said, all I needed to do was say, what's the word? Hello. It's so simple. There's a doctor at Harvard University. You've all heard of Harvard too, I guess, right? Yeah. Herbert Benson was his name, and he was a cardiologist. This is a true story. I heard him tell this story. I was with him in the room many times. These hippies, was in the, when would Herbert have been around? Maybe 70s or 80s. 1970s, 1980s. That time is getting to be longer and longer ago. But anyway, they knocked on his door, literally, and they said, you're struggling to treat hypertension, high blood pressure. You're really struggling. We can show you how to do it. And he, first time, closed the door on them. They came back 6 months later. They said, we are serious. We can show you. This is Herbert Benson, Harvard professor, well known for being able to treat hypertension and cardiovascular disease. And they said, we're going to show you. And they taught him what is called transcendental meditation. I never did TM, but basically somebody gives you what's called a mantra. And it can be, usually the mantras are Sanskrit words that have a certain vibration. So remember, I was talking about energy. Literally, you say those Sanskrit words and they begin to affect how your molecules are lined up. This is not like bug, bug, bug. This is true. Now we have studies showing it, a lot of studies showing what it does. You don't have to have that Sanskrit mantra. That's a good thing. I'm all for it, by the way, Sanskrit mantras. But what Herbert Benson found is that if you teach everyone, you bring people in with hypertension, and you have them say a word, that in a high percentage of cases, you can bring their blood pressure down. And he found that a one-syllable word works better than a two-syllable word. So all of a sudden, these hippies that had showed, this is really true. That was the beginning of mindfulness. And mindfulness, as we know it around the world, not just in the US, did originate at Harvard, the whole concept. And then, who's the Indian guy? Deepak Chopra, thank you, wound up going to Harvard. So Benson and Deepak Chopra, and some of these names you probably know, they just created mindfulness. They're basically saying to people, you sit still and just focus on your body. First, focus on your left foot. Stay there for a few seconds. Focus on your right foot. They just had them go through this running through their body, calm. It makes you calm, like saying one word does. So this is what mindfulness is. It's an incredibly simple technique, and you can do it in many ways. You can do it with a mantra. You can do it with a word. You can do it by doing this body scan. What's hard about it? You know what's doing it? Thank you. That's exactly right. Doing it. You know how hard it is to say to yourself, 5 minutes twice a day. I'm going to, let me just see what time it is. I want to leave time for us to actually have questions and answers and speak. It's very hard. You know, about, I'd say 4 years ago, it doesn't matter, it was before the pandemic. I was invited to give a talk on the science of meditation. And I don't do that. I just talk about meditation, and I talk about mindfulness, and I talk about true health and true wellness. But this man who was putting on this big seminar kept saying to me, Shanti, this is a scientific presentation. I said, okay, I'm learning this whole new computer thing. I have all my friends help me. Seriously, I'm making these gorgeous slides. I read 103 articles, medical. I'm busy. I'm really busy. So I was reading these articles like from midnight to 3 a.m. to put together this presentation. And it was very impressive, not me, but the data of the numbers of things that 15 minutes once a day, 15 minutes once a day. Now, this is science. The things that it will help, lowering blood pressure, the treatment of people's blood sugar comes down. People who have insomnia certainly helps with anxiety, depression. Scientific studies. Oh, this is so cute. Catherine, you know, I'm very impressed. You guys all came here to hear me after seeing this picture. This is impressive to me. This is Max. He's my puppy. He's my next child. I love him. I sent them a picture and they put it on this flyer. But Catherine, and he's an anxious dog. The breed is anxious. And he hates it when I leave. And Catherine, we were out in the parking lot. She's talking about how she has to sedate Bran, her dog. She has to sedate the dog, particularly if there's thunder. We all know there's been a lot of thunder around. Let me just think, I lost my train of thought. I got so sidetracked by Max there. I started thinking, is Max okay? That's the next problem, is how our minds wander. They shouldn't. But let me see if I can get back on track, or I'll just pick it up somewhere else. Where I was going with that. Well, it'll come back if it's important. But anyway, all of these studies showing all of what mindfulness or meditation, but the studies are mostly done on mindfulness because there's no religion or spirit in it. So, and people don't necessarily want to talk about religion or spirituality. But if you tell them just do a body scan or say 2 words, it's easier for most people. And it's really true, and I understand why I'm not. But anyway, so mindfulness caught on because it was much easier than actually going deeper into any spiritual path. And so all the studies are based on it, and the studies are so dramatic. They're just undeniably dramatic about the usefulness of it. And so there were 3 of my friends who came to this talk. 2 of them have hypertension. My friends, one of them's been my best friend since I'm 4 years old. That's 72 years ago, long time. We're sisters. She loves me. She's on like 8 different meds, blood pressure, cholesterol, this, that. She's sitting there in this audience of this big talk, all these other people watching like this, shaking their heads. 6 months later, I wrote all of them, are any of you meditating? No. Why is that? How could you have high blood pressure and know that you have to take all those medicines and not spend 15 minutes a day? It's really hard to do it. But it is very important for living life. Life is stressful. We all get these dis-eases eventually. Most of us do anyway, something. We all do. We all feel stressed at times. It's not just Bran and Max. People and animals, we get stressed. So if we know there's something that we can do that would help us, what in the world are we waiting for? It's a very interesting question. This is a miracle that's been discovered in the recent past. Just about, as I said, you just say one word, you just say the word, but sit and say it. Try to say it 5 minutes twice a day. Something that makes you feel uplifted, happy, uplifted. I had a teacher once who said to me, if you're not somebody who smiles, go in front of the mirror twice a day. Lift up your lips. Make yourself, why is that? You try it, think about it. What happens when we smile? What happens when we look at somebody who smiles? Really, what is our whole language about? I feel high. I feel uplifted. We do that. We don't say, gee, I really feel great today. No, everything is about raising our energy. We want to do that. So we could talk a long time. I have hundreds of stories to tell that are powerful stories of ways that these techniques have helped me. They help us become calm. They give us energy. When I was in medical school, we used to have to work a minimum of 120 hours a week in the hospital with very sick people. And most of the nights we weren't sleeping. That's a lot of hours. And I never quit sitting to meditate. And my friends in medical school would say to me, how do you do that? And I would say to them, how do you not do it? Because we know that if we do it, we need less sleep. We get more energy. We have less illnesses. We feel less stress. We are less anxious. We enjoy life more. Now, this has just all been proven. So what's not to like? It's just, why would we not do it? Story after story after story I have of the joyful experiences in medicine, in huge medical practice, very demanding. Are there any doctors in the room? No, it's very demanding. You're just on call all the time and very little sleep most of my life. And yet I could say that I call that grace. I mean, call it what you want, but that all that came to me, that I have loved waking up every morning of my life to go and do that. And I've loved many other things I do. And I know all of you are doing good things, but there's a joyfulness that we can find, a true sense of inner joy, of enthusiasm, of like, where did that energy come from? How did I just suddenly know that? I don't know that. I'd go through a situation and something would just come to me. How do things just come to us? Really, what is that? What is intuition? I mean, you can't really think of it. I was going to say when you think of it, but intuition is about not thinking. Intuition is getting calm enough, calm, centered. That's what that phrase means. Quieted, calming the heart's emotion so that we can have experiences that we can't have when we're emotional. So suddenly a diagnosis comes, suddenly an awareness. My colleagues would say to me, how did you know that? And I'd say, oh, you wouldn't believe it. Because I wasn't going to say to them, I sit to meditate. They would never believe it. But it wasn't me. It's about everybody just getting quiet enough to be able to hear that which is beyond how we all think we're healing. Because everything's energy. That's what it comes back to. We're in a sea of energy that we can tap into. We've just never been trained to do it. So it sounds like witchcraft or something when you hear it, but it's not. It works. Here I am, sane, getting older, but calm, loving what I do, and being able to keep serving. And here's another thing about serving. I'll stop as soon as I say this. Serving itself opens the heart. I think that's why probably you all love doing what you do. Catherine was out in the parking lot before, joyfully saying, I have 4 different meetings tomorrow. First I have to run here, then I have to run there. Then I hope it's okay that I'm saying this. She wasn't complaining. Huh? You canceled too? Oh no. Well, maybe after this talk, you can go back and put them back on. But it's that kind of joy and energy and enthusiasm. Everybody can have it. Everybody can have it. There's a part of us that just doesn't believe it, or we don't want to take the time. It's an interesting thing about the human condition. We like to keep ourselves limited to what we've been taught and what we know. So I'm just saying, there's a lot more out there. And serving opens our heart, hearing things like this, music that lifts you up, holding your face up and smiling, except all of you sitting in this row are smiling. You know, these are things that heal us. I'm a scientist speaking to you. This is truth, what I'm saying.